Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today I have John Allcock. He is an author, an attorney, and he's also a co-founder of a school, right? So we're going to talk about all of these things today. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Sure, it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us what led you to become an attorney.
That's easy. I was a philosophy major in college, and I determined that the only thing I could do with my degree was drive a bus or something like that. And so I decided to go to law school.
Wow. Just like that.
Yeah.
So after you went to law school, at any time did you feel like, geez, I made a mistake?
No, actually not. I've had a long career, but doing different things, and so it's almost like I've changed jobs, even though I've stayed at the same firm.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I've changed jobs every 7 or 8 years and been doing different things. So no, actually, I think it was a really good decision.
Wow. Okay. So when did you realize that you had a bigger calling to do something different?
Well, about, the 2003, 2004, I was going through some challenging times. I was going through divorce and other things. And so I started looking at mindfulness as a way of changing my perspective on life, I guess you would say. Mm-hmm. And so I went to a lot of seminars. I read many, many books. I went to some retreats, including week-long silent retreats. And I really got into the study of it and the practice of it. And so that's what kind of led me on this path that led to the book.
Wow. So that you said you went to a week-long silent retreat. What is that like?
It's very challenging. I've been to quite a number of them, actually. I've been to Spirit Rock. Jack Kornfield and others started that up in Northern California. And I've been to Thich Nhat Hanh's facility, mm-hmm. Plum Village in France. We actually brought the whole school, Sea Change, to Plum Village in France. It's very, very challenging. You think you're doing nothing, but actually sitting there silently is really doing quite a lot.
What was the first thing that you realized after sitting silent for like maybe a couple of hours? Do you have any revelations? I'm still trying to learn how to meditate, and it's like difficult for me, but...
Yeah, a couple hours is a long time. 20 minutes is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first thing that struck me, and it actually is kind of where the book starts, is that your mind actually is capable of a function other than thinking, and that is a really hard thing for a Western person who is trained in Western thinking and Western education to realize.
Yeah, I'd say. So tell us about this Mindfulness at Sea Change Preparatory. That's your school, right? So why did you see a need for this?
Well, it was after I wrote the book, mm-hmm. And I met my now wife, Cheryl, and she had run a school for a long period of time, 20-some years by that time. And it was a... school that had a very, very innovative, advanced curriculum, a low student-to-teacher ratio, and a ocean swimming program. She swam at Ohio State. And I thought that mindfulness would be a good add to the school. I got interested in mindfulness techniques applied to students. I became certified as a mindfulness instructor through Mindful Schools. And so we started to develop a curriculum which we developed over a period of about 18 months and now has been in place for about 18 months.
So what is the Eastern practices of mindfulness? Like if you had to sum it up to just explain to someone briefly, high level, what is it?
It's paying attention to your present moment experience, both internal and external, without judgment. So you're not captured by that experience, but rather can view it objectively. It's that simple.
I like it. Sounds difficult, though.
Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
Right. So what's the grade level at your school?
So we go from 4th grade through 12th, and the mindfulness component kind of runs through the school. All the teachers and staff are trained in it, but the basic core of it is 3 mornings a week for about a 30-minute period. The students are led in a mindful meditation session, typically just before they enter into the open ocean for an hour swim, where some aspects of mindfulness certainly continue. And then one day a week, there's a afternoon seminar that touches on various topics, frequently of current interest. But one day a week, the seminar topic is a mindfulness topic, which could be a chapter from my book or could be using some other source. So that's more or less the formal mindfulness curriculum. It's about 3 hours a week, really. But as I said, there's other aspects of it that are kind of integrated throughout the other aspects of the school's curriculum.
Right, and you guys do like a core, math, English, all that stuff that... Yeah. So what do you think is the best takeaway for the kids at this school that you would say compared to a regular school, like, they're doing better in what areas?
So I think from the perspective of how the mindfulness helps, it, I think, increases their concentration, their ability to focus. I led a session this morning, and we had 14 kids sitting in a circle, paying attention to their breath, despite train noise, birds, dogs, and other people walking by and other distractions, for 12 minutes. So I think it improves concentration, it improves the ability to focus, and it also improves self-control, self-regulation, and therefore their ability to get along with others.
Yeah, definitely. I could see how all of those things could help with that. We could use that at my job, like.
Well, it's taking, it's since, in the last 4 or 5 years, many, many major corporations, Google, a lot of the big insurance companies have instituted mindfulness programs.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And I think it's like a necessity. So you are an author, and your latest book is 40 Things I Wish I'd Told My Kids, Mindful Messages About Success, Happiness, Leather, Pickles, and the Use and Misuse of Imagination. So what brought on the idea for your book?
So it was, as I mentioned earlier, it was a 2004-05 time period. I was studying mindfulness, and I have 3 daughters, and I was looking to pass along the things I was learning to them, and I couldn't find a book, a single book, and not even a series of books that I thought explained what I was learning in very simple, concise terms that was easily accessible to a Western audience. At the time, my kids were all teenagers, basically. And so on Father's Day of 2009, I started writing emails to them. And over the period of about 2 years, I wrote them a couple hundred emails.
Wow.
And they started passing the emails around to some of their friends, and some of their friends started passing them around to their parents. And a number of people said, look, you should put this together in a book. And so I did.
Nice. Isn't that interesting how things come together?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So the 200 or so emails got basically edited down and composed into 40 relatively short chapters.
Okay. Share with us one thing you have learned about success, happiness, leather, and pickles.
Well, I'll start with the success part. The first chapter of the book really is kind of a thematic setting for the whole book. And the first chapter is Don't Be Ruled by the Tyranny of Events. And, most of the Western culture views our happiness as being dictated by external events. The stock market goes up, we're happy. We run into traffic in the morning, we're sad. Our boss treats us roughly or gives us a bad review, we're despondent for a week. And we allow our mind state to be governed by external conditions. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things about mindfulness is if you really pay attention to your state, you realize it doesn't have to be that way. Your response to these external events is actually more important to your mind state, to your success in life, than the external event.
Yeah, that is so true. I had like a little situation happen to me the other day, and I kind of like flew off the handle, and I was so mad at myself because I was like, this was so stupid. I was reacting to something that someone said to me. And I was just like, for days, I kept replaying the whole incident, in my head, like, oh, I should have said this, or I should have done this. Why did I, come out of character? Why couldn't I like just be more controlled and like, and it just sat with me for days. So I really need some help here.
Well, that's a great example. The simple example that I give, in a lot of these talks that I give is someone cuts you off on the way home, mm-hmm. right? And so all of a sudden you're with a friend of yours, you're having a pleasant conversation, somebody cuts you off. What happens? You get mad, your blood pressure goes up, the pleasant conversation turns south for the next 10 or 15 miles. You're mad at someone who you have no idea why they did it. It could be a guy rushing his pregnant wife to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, you wouldn't be mad at all. But you have no idea. And you're making all these assumptions. And then you're putting yourself in a very bad condition for no reason whatsoever. And it's all as a result of a habit or a reaction pattern to an external event. And so what mindfulness allows is to pay attention without judgment to, in this case, an external and then internal event, the internal event being the terrible story that you're telling yourself, without judgment and without letting you be captured by it. And then you can apply wisdom in that space that you create for yourself to determine what the best course of action is. Is it to fume and to have hateful thoughts, or is it to just let it go and resume your pleasant conversation? I think you know the answer to the question, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm definitely working to get to that place. That is my ultimate goal, is to get to that place. So I'm definitely working on it. So you were giving us your lessons learned for success. So happiness.
So happiness is being content, regardless of external circumstances. So it's a lot of what we were talking about a moment ago. Mm-hmm. It's having the ability to go through life, having goals and trying to achieve goals, but not beating yourself with a stick if you don't achieve every goal you set for yourself. And not letting external events control your mind state as you move along in life.
Yeah, that's another one I'm working on. I'm doing a lot of work, right?
Well, life is, it's part of life, right?
Yeah, we're all a work in progress. What can we say?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So what about this leather?
So leather requires a little bit of a story. So there was a king one time who had a son, a prince, and the prince went out walking, and on the paths that were all over the kingdom. And he tripped on a root that had grown up out of the dirt path and stubbed one of his toes and then landed the other toe on a rock that was lying loose on the path. And so he came back to the king with 2 injured feet. And the king said to one of his ministers, get the army out. Have them comb all the paths in the kingdom and pick up every rock and cut through every root and smooth the paths so my prince won't ever hurt his feet again. Mm-hmm. And the minister was quite a wise fellow, and he said, that's really not possible, because as soon as we pick up the rocks, more will come out of the ground. And as soon as we cut off the roots, more will grow. A better idea would be to get some leather and have the prince make himself some shoes that'll cover the feet, so that then he can walk around all these paths and have a protection of the things out there that might injure him, rather than trying to imagine every problem that he would come across and eliminate them by going out to the externals and fix them. And so that's what he did. That's the invention of shoes. And so you can see how that's a lot like our own lives, right? I mean, here in the West, we try to imagine how we can fix every problem out there. Well, you can't fix the stock market, and you can't fix traffic. And if you try to spend all your time thinking about how you can, you'll lead an anxiety-filled life, because you're worrying about solving problems out there that you really don't have any control over. And that's the way a lot of people live their lives. And mindfulness is the idea of building yourself some shoes, of creating a situation where you're not reactive to events, you're in control of your response to events, and thus you're in control of your mental state, regardless of what rocks and roots you may encounter on your path through life. So that's leather.
Yeah, I like that. I actually am doing that, so check for me. I subscribe to the idea that, one day at a time, right? And you just focus on the day and deal with things as they come and do the best that you can.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Although there's a little bit of future-oriented stuff that maybe you want to take into account of, and that's pickles. You want to hear about pickles?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That's another little bit of a story. So you go down in the morning, and you're going to make lunch for the kids, and you're running. You're really in a hurry, and the kids are running around. They're in a hurry too, and so you go into the refrigerator to get the pickle jar, and you're going to put some pickles on one of their sandwiches. And so you grab it, you're in a hurry, you open it up, you take the pickles out, and you put them on the sandwich, and then you're rushing around, and so you put the cover of the jar on. But because you're rushing it, you put it on crooked. So it's a jar. It's not smooth. It's crooked and loose. So you don't notice because you're rushing. You're not being mindful. And so you put it back in the refrigerator. A couple of days later, same situation. You run down in the morning, you're rushing around, you're not mindful, you go to grab the pickle jar, by the cover, you pull it out, of course the thing falls on the ground, smashes, and there's pickles and glass all over the floor. So you run the kids out, you try to clean it up the best you can, then you run off to work. So you come back home that night, you've forgotten all about the pickles. Next morning, you come down, and you're in your bare feet rushing around to get, and you know where this is going, to get the kids to school, and you step on a piece of glass that you neglected to pick up the day before because you were not mindful and you were hurrying then. And so now you find yourself in the emergency room. So what does that have to do with pickles? It has to do with the notion that your present moment intention bear fruit in the future.
Yeah.
And if you have certain present moment intentions that are wise, it doesn't guarantee that your future will be a good one, but it improves the chances that it will be. And that's kind of the notion of karma, right? That if you were acting mindfully and carefully, it doesn't guarantee that you won't ever drop a pickle jar, but it certainly improves the chances that you won't. And so while I agree that we should spend a lot of time in the present moment, part of what we can do in the present moment is plan, as long as it isn't excessive.
Yeah, I like that. And I have a little story too. This weekend, I was taking my husband out for our anniversary, and I was rushing around like a lunatic. And I didn't have my lashes. I was just like freaking out. We gotta go, you know. So we left. I just grabbed my lipstick. I got to the car. You know, I'm putting on my lashes in the car. And then I pull out the lipstick and it's the wrong color. So, John, you can imagine I was pissed, right? And in that moment, I thought to myself, why do I do this to myself every single time? I need to plan my days better and slow down. Take the time I need to do the things that I want to do so that I'm not running around like a crazy person and then I'm forgetting things and I don't have things. And then I set the tone, you know, on the way to wherever we're going miserably. And it's just a disaster for everyone, you know?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I totally can relate to that whole pickle thing.
Well, see, so what it comes down to is your present moment. It's sort of like your present moment intention won't guarantee future positive results, but if you select an unwise present moment intention, it certainly won't yield positive results.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So that's pickles.
Exactly. So what do you want? What message, like if there was one message that you wanted people to take away from this book, what would it be?
It would be that mindfulness is a easily accessible and very practical thing to learn about and thing to train in. And that whatever time you spend learning about it and training in it will yield many, many beneficial results, much, much, much greater than the time that you spend in putting into it. And my book, I hope, is a really easy way for someone who has really no background in it to learn about it in a very, very common sense set of practical ways.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you guys have the school and are teaching children from such a young age how to be more mindful, because that will help them as adults. I mean, it's brainless. So I want to talk a little bit about the struggle. We talk about the passion, we talk about the purpose, we talk about all of those things in our lives. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about different times in your life, and I would like for you to identify maybe what the struggle was for you in that moment. And if you didn't have any struggles, that's great. You could just say, hey, I didn't have any struggles in that. So what did you struggle with the most as an attorney?
So look, everybody has struggles. If you talk to anybody that says they've never had struggles, they've never lived a life.
Right.
I guess one of the biggest struggles as an attorney is balancing your life, balancing your time. I think that's a struggle that a lot of people have to balance between your work life and your home life and your leisure life and your relationship life and all that. So I think that's a pretty much of a constant struggle for most people.
Yes.
Who have pretty busy jobs.
What would you say was the biggest struggle you had when you were opening the school?
I would say, and it's still. I mean, we just started the school, so it's getting the name out and getting people to hear about the school and to, really try an alternative to the standard, large classes, traditional curriculum.
And that's so crazy because I love having a smaller class for, my child. Like my daughter, not my daughter, my sister, she sent her daughter to a Montessori school, just because of the whole different way of learning and things like that. So I would think that more parents would be more inclined to, do that. But again, it's just getting the name out there. And I totally know how difficult that is.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but
Yeah.
it'll work out.
Yes, the cream always rises to the top, John. So, of course, when you were writing your book, what did you struggle with?
So I would say it wasn't so much a specific struggle. It was, I had a really super good editor who helped along before we even sent the book off to publishers. And it was trying to organize, I would say, the book, trying to figure out how to put the pieces together. And the best advice about a bunch of good advice Scott gave me is don't worry about that. The sequence will be revealed to you as you write the thing. And he was right. The chapters, I think, flow pretty well. And there was no a priori decision or outline as to how they would flow. They kind of came out the way they came out. There was some adjustment as we went along, but more or less they kind of organically grew. But that was kind of, I think, the biggest challenge.
Okay. And what do you struggle with daily? Like, even though you're mindful and, you have learned the best way to get through your day-to-day, what do you still feel like you have to work on a daily basis?
So one way to think about that is everyone has certain aspects of their being that cause struggles. Everyone has fear. Everyone has worry. Everyone has the feeling that you're being blamed. Everyone has the feeling that something unfortunate is going to happen to you or has happened to you. All of these things are, they come with the human package.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Does anybody not have all those? I mean, if they are, they don't need to read my book. And so I would say that that's basically, the same kinds of struggles everyone has. They get different names and objects to them, but they all come from those categories because those are the things that make us human.
Yep, absolutely. And that's why I started, you're like the first person that I'm doing this struggle piece with, because I like to talk about, how people found their passions and how they got to where they are and how they're following their purpose and stuff like that. But I also think it's a good idea to share with people, that even though you can find your passion or you are living in your purpose, we still struggle with different things. And, we just learn how to balance them and handle them, but we are always still, a work in progress and still building ourselves. So that's why I included that little piece. So thank you for being the guinea pig today on that.
Well, another way to look at it is you can look at it as life is a struggle. But the way I choose to look at it is life is a series of challenges.
Right.
And so that's just life. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Some challenges you overcome in the way that you want. Others you don't. But, I tell my kids, and it's in the book right in the middle of it, one of the worst things we can do is believe that we know what's best for us. Some of the best things that ever happened to me in life were things that were the opposite of what I wanted. And if you're just open to that, you can turn things that are what you think initially is an unhappy thing into an opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I love that. So what are you the most passionate about today?
Oh my God. It depends on the moment. So this morning, I'm 62 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and this morning I swam for an hour in the ocean with a 14-year-old, and I just finished my 8th week of swim lessons. So I've now improved to the point where I can keep up with the 14-year-old through 4-foot waves. So I'm passionate about, certain aspects of physical activity. I'm still passionate about trying lawsuits. That's what I am, a trial lawyer, and so I'm still passionate about that. I'm passionate about the school, and this morning I wrote a new chapter. I'm working on a book that would be 40 mindful meditations, and so I wrote a new chapter and used it with the students this morning. So, and there's many, many more things. I have a very full life.
John, you are busy. I love it. You are living your best life. So I was going to say, do you feel like you are living in your purpose?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I have many purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, I have
You
many
are,
purposes.
that's great. I love it. So this is the Oh Hell No podcast, right? So on this podcast, I always like to ask my guests about an Oh Hell No moment they've had along their journey, because we have Oh Hell No moments all the time, right? It could be a shared moment. It could be a moment where you're alone. It's usually a moment of surprise, something that
Uh-huh.
happens that could be a positive surprise or a not so positive surprise. So think back to a moment where you said, oh, hell no. Did that just happen? It could be positive, it could be negative, John, but we want to know.
So there's a lot of them, but here's one that goes into the category of not knowing what's good for you. So I went to a good school in Rhode Island, high school. I did very well in my high school. And the tradition from my high school was that quite a number of students would get accepted at Brown University.
Mm-hmm.
And so my guidance counselor said, "You're right in line. Your grades are great. You've got athletic stuff. It should be no problem whatsoever." And so I didn't get in. I got on the waiting list, and I was crushed because I thought it was the best school for me and all the like. And so I went to Boston College, which was 60 miles away. It was in a different city. I met a whole new group of different people and like that. All of the people that I was close to that went to Brown, many of them applied to law school, and none of them got into Harvard Law School. I applied from BC, and I got in.
Wow.
And so, this is one of the stories I tell my kids, where you never know what is best for you when things happen. You assume that the things you want are the best for you, but you don't really have any idea. And so you're way better off not thinking you know what's best for you, but rather taking what you're given and making the most of it.
That's a great oh hell no moment, John.
Isn't
I
that a good
love
story?
it. Yeah, it really is.
It's really funny.
So tell us, how can we keep up with all things John Allcock? We want to know if you have any handles for, social media, or how we can check out the school, where we can get your book. Tell us everything.
Right. There's two websites that you can find me at. One is the very creatively titled one, 40 Things I Wish I Told My Kids, which is the book's website, and it has talks, synopsises of talks that I would give, and other things. And then there's the Sea Change website, Sea Change Prep, and there's a link to the Sea Change website in my book's website, so you can get to Sea Change either way. And you'll pretty much be able to figure out what I'm doing between those two. There's an events and media section on the book's website that gives you an idea of where I'm being interviewed and giving talks and the like.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your life with us today. I really appreciate it, and I wish you continued success. And when you finish your next book, come back on the Oh Hell No podcast and tell us all about it.
Super. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, take care.